You spent over a decade in Kenya's fashion industry.
You're responsible for your vision. The market speaks very clearly. If you're not selling this,
Do you feel like at some point you could lose your soul?
so you're excited, so everything looks like a good idea.
And good times create weak men.
Yeah.
If today this conversation that we've had were heard by Kenyan, South African, Zambian, Ugandan creator, what truth would you want them to take away? Hello and welcome once again to the Rooted in Quality podcast. Today we have a gentleman, Mr. James Ong'weny, who is redefining the fashion landscape in Nairobi. He has a long history in the industry, but more importantly, his experiences that we believe can shape what it takes to build on this continent. And we'll be spending the next couple of hours digging into his story as well as the lessons that he's picked up along the way that as young creators, designers, as well as builders on the continent we can pick from. Thank you once again, James, for joining us here on Rooted in Quality.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure being here with you guys.
Now, you spent over a decade in Kenya's fashion industry. What do you know about survival and what it takes to stay this long in the industry that nobody tells a young and up-and-coming designer?
I think in regards to survival and running a brand for over 10 years, sometimes it's strange saying it like it's been over a decade, yes. But I think the one thing that someone doesn't tell you is, as a young designer, it's not about you. There's two perspectives that people will enter the fashion industry, especially in Nairobi. You enter as a designer. A few years ago, you enter as a business person in fashion. And those are two very different mindsets, two very different perspectives. So I came in as a designer. And when you're a young designer, it's all about your designs and your product. And you're very confident in what you're doing, especially when you start getting your first few compliments. And you automatically assume my designs are good equals to I will be successful. And you literally design almost for yourself. And I don't know whether this is different for male designers and women designers and female designers. If you're working on women's wear. So I primarily work on women's wear. But there's some things I cannot tell or perceive because, again, I don't wear the clothes. So back then, it was all about the design and I think it'll work. I never used to ask any questions. How does it fit? How does it feel? Nothing. So I thought it was all about the design.
The aesthetic.
And I didn't put the person who's going to wear the clothes at the forefront and say, okay, I think my concept is good. How will it work for you? Where are you going? What do you wear this for? I think there's a lack of that when you're coming in, I think, as a designer, especially in a young market. It really is about learning what your design style is and what you're trying to communicate, and then who does it fit and how does it fit their lifestyle and how do you make it easier to fit their lifestyle. I think that's the one thing that I would have liked to be told way earlier. And the fact that Itikadi has been here 10 years, it's also because we learned to ask those questions, and then we learned to also kind of mold what we are doing into what our customers want.
What is your earliest memory of fashion or craft from your family that made you believe that design could be something that you spend the rest of your life pursuing?
My grandmother was a seamstress and had her own shop in we call it Uhuru Market on Jogo Road. So this was a market that's known for guys tailoring and making stuff. So my grandmother had that business. And we used to go to her shop very often with my mom. And then my mom picked up the same business, but she was doing it more in regards to corporate uniforms and such, not really ready to wear or fashion for consumers. So I grew up around clothes and fabric. That was my environment. And as a kid, when I was young, I was very artistic. So I used to draw. I used to do a bit of art, not a lot. But then this was the outlet that I saw. And also back in the day when you grew up, like there was the most famous, I think, soap opera. My mom used to love watching The Bold and the Beautiful. So it's a fashion. It's basically a fashion a fashion show, a fashion program. So you have a situation where you're growing up around clothes. My mom's favorite program is The Bold and the Beautiful, and then I have two younger sisters, and I think they had gotten one of my aunts had gotten them like the Barbie dolls. And there was a day I was just playing around and like, oh, I think one of the clothes on the Barbies had gotten dirty and my sister wanted to change, but they really don't come with any change of clothes. So she had washed them, but then the thing was naked. And I was like, okay, let me try and make something really quick, like a skirt or pants or something that I've seen. And ideally that's kind of where it kind of clicked, like, oh, I could do around it all the time. It didn't feel like
something you have to learn.
Yeah, so I was just like trying to help my sister out, be like, okay, you've washed kind of the Barbie's clothes or something, but you can't literally have your doll naked out. So let me just make for you something. And ideally, that's when I was like, okay, I guess you can make stuff, you know. But then there was a big gap in between, and then in uni is when something clicked and I started now doing a little bit more fashion.
Listening to you, what you've become might not be a big surprise to most people who have known you because of fashion being around you throughout your entire journey. So I feel like if your younger self walked into the room today or walked into your studio, what about you do you think would surprise him?
I think how much I can listen to others and listen to suggestions. I think also because when you're designing, you're really invested in your idea or your concept, and any criticism or kind of suggestion that it could be different can be taken personally. And I learned how to grow out of that and be like, okay, as much as my concept is here, I'm not the one who's going to actively use it. You know, my main job is to imagine something interesting or something that I find interesting for my customer, but I'm literally doing 50%. The other 50% has to be done by the client buying in and saying, oh, I really love this piece. It did this and this for me. And if what it did for them matches with what I was trying to do, then we've reached 100%. So I had to learn how to listen to others, especially the women around me, because again, I'm a guy designing for women, but I'm just a guy. Like, I'm not going to try any of these things on.
It's good you didn't end up being tempted to say, okay, let me just wear this and see.
Yeah,
have you ever been?
Actually, never. Like, a lot of guys who meet me and don't know what I'm doing, their immediate assumption is I'm in tech or I'm in some other. Like, I have the most normal, boring guy life. Like, my weekends are waiting for football matches, and you know, it's then just the norm weekend. So when I'm designing is when I'm just letting out a lot of creative ideas, inspired by what I'm seeing and what I think would work. But I really have to listen to the women around me, whether it's my wife, my business partner, because they represent the people who will actively put these clothes on and be real ambassadors for the brand, so that's one thing I think the younger me would, I think, be happy about. That okay, he's listening more, he's taking in notes. It's not about me all that, and the design all the time. It has to kind of merge.
When you were talking earlier, you said something knowing that the fact that your design is good does not mean that you'll be successful. And it's sort of stuck in my head. For you and the journey that you've been on, what personal sacrifices have you had to make to keep Itikadi alive and successful in growing, even when you got to know that, yes, you were good at designing?
I think the one sacrifice that anyone has to make, especially when you're trying to build a brand, will be, for creative, is around your ego. That's number one.
Okay.
You'll have to sacrifice a lot of what you feel work or what you think works. There are 2 points where I had to say, this is not working, or the business is not working as well as it should. Let me go and learn from someone else. Let me go do an internship for 3 months and see how it really works. Let me take a break and go work. If you're running a fashion business and the business is not working, this is where you feed yourself and you're trying to feed your family. At some point, the tensions will build and it will be a problem.
The creativity will die out.
Yeah, and you'll be dealing with more problems than trying to be creative. So there's points where you go like, okay, maybe I need time to learn this so that it could work better. You want the people closest to you to be your biggest either champions or to be the people who, give you the most encouragement or support. And sometimes they will not see what you're seeing, or they understand what you're trying to do, but it's not their vision. It's not their responsibility to see what you're seeing. And if they don't see it and it's being a problem and they genuinely want the best for you, they might be telling you, maybe this isn't working, maybe you should do something else. But what you're hearing is, you're not good enough and you should stop. They're not responsible for your vision. You're responsible for your vision. And you're responsible for saying, I need to tweak this so that the vision could work. So maybe I need to take a break or find this, or maybe I need to get something else in the meantime. You're not going anywhere. Well, we don't know when the time or the hour, yes. But you're still here. Your creativity has not disappeared. The market speaks very clearly. If you're not selling, there's something wrong. There's something you're not doing. There's something you're not hitting, or there's something you're not communicating. And you should. I saw a really good quote, or I had a really good quote the other week where I said, people can look at problems very differently. You should see a problem as something that's needing your attention. And if you give it the attention, then you'll solve it. So those are some of the things where you will have to sacrifice. I feel as a creative, at some point, you'll have to sacrifice your ego and listen. And then you will have to contend with some strain in some relationships, especially because, again, people will not see what you're seeing or what you're trying to do as you navigate the industry.
As a creative, if it's not working or if it's not gotten to the way you feel it should be possible to take a step back. And you talked about having gone to take a job along the line. Can you talk a little bit about that? And I'm very big on that because we tend to be in an age where people don't recognize the importance of apprenticeship and actually also going to learn and picking from expertise from other places. Yeah. So maybe you can share a little bit of that experience you had and how you think it has shaped or molded what you're building in Itikadi.
I went to work for another fashion brand, and because what I was seeing was two things. Like I believed in what I was designing, but it wasn't translating to sales numbers. And the other brand was bigger and they're doing the numbers. So I felt there's something that's happening there that's not happening here. I just approached and said, can I do an internship? I wanted to see 100% for sure. Like it was night and day. The minute I was there, I knew these things I do not do. And as usual, it is everything that is not creative. So it's the stuff that you might not enjoy doing. When you're younger, it's like, okay, I want to do a collection, and I won't speak for everyone, but I'll speak for myself. Saying that every month I will release something new was not something I was doing. So it's, now the collection is ready, I can release it. But what happens is, one, you're not predictable to the market, you're not predictable to the customers who want to buy your stuff. So you're on and off. And they have other people they are looking at. So you're not really top of mind at all. So the brand I was working with, they had a proper schedule for launches, and they could do it 3-4 months ahead of time. Now, this didn't mean all the launches worked or everything got out on time, but the intention was there to say, I have to discipline my creativity, and it has to make sense to the business that we're doing. So I can be creative, I can design anytime I want, but that doesn't help how a fashion business should run. So what are some of the disciplines that you need to have so that you can maximize on your creativity? And up to today, I'm learning. Like, one of the things I'm trying to do is almost schedule my day to say, morning hours, I sketch. This time, I take time to create prints. This time, I'm in the workshop with the tailor. We're trying to refine things. Or this time, I'm cutting, and try to have it as predictable as possible so that I give enough time for whatever my creative needs are, whatever the business needs are, time for rest, time for kids. And I think that discipline of the other things that kind of help build businesses, we still don't see it in fashion schools here. So you'll have your sketching courses, you'll have your tailoring courses, you'll have your pattern drafting courses, you'll have all the technical things as the forefront, but the business things are almost in the background, where you'll do a bit of accounting, a bit of marketing, and then when you're thrown into the market, they tell you, oh no, these are the forefront things. You can design anytime you want. That comes free with you as a designer. You're not going to not create, but these are the things
that will keep the lights on.
Will keep the lights on. So you're trying to test concepts and scale them down to your size from another size. The problems might look similar, but as long as you learn this is how you deal with it, or maybe these are the disciplines that are there, I think that in general will give you a good chance to succeed.
For you, where do your ideas come from? Like, is it from memory? Is it from a place? Is it from people?
To be honest, a lot of my ideas, a lot of my inspiration was my grandmother and my mom. So I used to see a lot of their old photos and a lot of the 70s, 80s, a bit of 60s fashion. And I really liked how elegant they were, how a lot of the pieces looked. So a lot of my instinct as a designer moves a lot towards a lot of elegant pieces, a lot of flowy pieces. I'm not a maximalist, so it's very minimal. I try to tone down just to put the right amount of detail on pieces.
So you take inspiration from the past and try to reinvent it for the future?
For now.
Reinvent it for now.
Yeah. And some of them so there are things that I will instinctively always do or always have or always try and design. We literally have a dress that we did last year where we're going to do it in a new print, but the dress and the print became so synonymous that customers were saying, I want this dress like they can't see it apart.
Separate.
So when we do it in a new print, it'll be interesting to see whether it kind of works. But they merge so well that customers are like, this dress and the print are the same. They work together, and they couldn't see it like as separate pieces.
In your creative process, how do you deal with creative blocks? I've had a lot of creatives struggle with it or talk about their experiences and their journey. How has it been for you?
I think I've been lucky in terms of having creative blocks or not having creative blocks. And I think it's a rhythm thing. So like I mentioned before, I never used to rush myself to design, but then I had to learn how to also have a cadence or a rhythm that forced me to create, right? And I'll be honest, like in terms of how I design, there are a lot of concept designers who want a very new concept and they have to do something extremely new. I consider myself very subtle, where I'll change maybe tiny things, but my silhouettes generally remain the same because I really believe in what those silhouettes do, right? So, for example, our wide leg pants, we have a pattern that has worked for like 3 or 4 styles, and what changes is literally the details on the pant itself or the fabric. But I believe this in the silhouette because it's a silhouette that gives it's free, it's very easy to wear for the customer, it's not a hassle, they can pair it with many things. So I also make it very easy for myself to be able to create. I don't rush myself a lot, and then we create like a rhythm. Design instincts are, and you understand them. I think it helps prevent some of these blocks.
When did you come into this framework of approaching design? Has it always been you, or as you matured, then you?
A lot of it has to do with maturity. So I'm older now. When I was younger, it was about trying to do the most with the design. I always had this thing where I wanted to see customers wear my items on a random Wednesday. They can pick it. So they don't need an event or they don't need to make a stay. I always wanted to have that bit of accessibility where it seamlessly fits into the wardrobe. I've always felt like I want my brand to have a level of quality that demands you to kind of sit up and be like, oh, I haven't seen that.
What's one design in your creative process that you've loved so much at the point when you were making it, and then the market told you something totally different?
We just came from like a good collaboration, like Q2 of this year, and we wanted to immediately the collaboration comes to a close to give customers something very new, unexpected. So we did a denim collection, and we got really good denim. Honestly, I believe we got the best quality denim I've seen a brand do locally. I very unashamedly hoarded the fabric. Like I got a good amount of the fabric. I got my supplier to hold it. And if someone wanted to buy, he was to call me first and ask me whether I want to pick more. But when we released it, it didn't do the numbers we expected it to. I'm learning to be patient with some of these things, but it's a business. There are some times where patience runs out and you're sitting with the stock and you've done all the work of designing. Now you want it to translate. A lot of the clients who bought were our loyal customers. Like some of our loyal customers bought in immediately, but it didn't do the numbers we did. But reflecting back, we also did not maybe do a gooder job as we should have communicating or preparing people for this kind of collection.
So you surprised the market.
We surprised the market, and maybe they didn't like the surprise. I still think we did a good collection. I still think the collection works. I think there are lessons there in regards to how you introduce new pieces, how you communicate new pieces, so that you give it the best chance
on the market.
Yeah.
When you look at the structure right now, how do you describe Itikadi's DNA?
I judge a lot of things on, does it feel elegant? Does it feel, does it hit that mark? Detailing. I like putting details, the right amount of detail in pieces. We'll always have a bit of detail and quality.
Elegance, details and quality.
Yeah.
Now, when you started off, you were doing a lot of small batch kind of capsule productions and the like. Was that strategy for you, or was it like a way to just survive and get by?
When we started, we used to do small batches, and I'm happy that that's what we could do at that time. There was no finance for like 30 pieces. So we just did what we could do. And I think it was a good thing at that time. Given what, even now, I won't do like a 30-piece collection.
What did that teach you that you think you would have missed if you were in a bigger market where you could do 100 pieces, one batch.
So let's say if I was in New York and the norm is you come out of fashion school, you figure out how to do a big collection, or you get a chance to do a big collection, and you have to now find buyers and you have to approach the stores that, buy the pieces. The ecosystem is so different. And the loop, because they've created this loop it's changing now, and maybe it's more direct to consumer. But the loop back then was there were so many gatekeepers, and you have to get into these spaces. But luckily, in an emerging market, we don't have that. So it's directly to your customer, and your customer tells you whether they like it or not. So I think that was a very big advantage, where you could learn slower and maybe not get burnt too much. Not that people did get burnt. There are guys who still did like 10, 15 pieces collections, and after that they were like, this is not...
I don't think this is for me.
Yeah, and you find it very hard to kind of move forward.
For somebody who describes himself as first and foremost a designer, a creator, do you feel like at some point you could lose your soul because you become more commercial?
I'm very safe in my creative side. And also, remember I'd mentioned a big thing for me was to see customers wear the pieces. So commerce was always going to be
a part of it,
where I'm very clear the times I design, but the minute I've finished designing the collection, my brain always switches. And now I'm like, I need to get these pieces to the customers because I believe they need them. I believe they need to have them. So everything now switches to how are we communicating? What's the best way we can sell? Are we doing any pop-ups? My mind immediately switches to how best you can sell. And remember, like I can't wear any of these things. Like I feel female designers have an advantage because they can use themselves as the model. If I was doing menswear, maybe it would be easier. If I was doing menswear as a priority, but when it switches, you now have to depend on others, either do the shoots, get the models, figure out who to work with as influencers. So I think as a designer, the commerce should always be important for you, because the biggest thing I think you can do for your business is give it the opportunity to do more. And the only way it can do more is if it's selling well, and you should allow yourself to do more by allowing your business to move. And this doesn't mean sell anywhere. I think it means more understanding, as a designer, what kind of designer are you, and then who fits for you, who's your customer. And you have to now shout in front or be present in front of the right people. I think that's where a lot of people take commerce. They believe you can be a very niche brand. You don't even need to be mass market. But then you have to understand who are the people who appreciate me being niche, or me doing organic cotton only, or me doing this kind of clothing, and me doing who appreciates that, and then who do I need to be in front of. And the minute you put yourself in front of those people, the numbers make sense, the same way the numbers make sense for a brand who want to be more mass market and more fast fashion.
Do you feel like your growth can be curtailed because we are in an era where people are looking for people-led or individual-led brands, and then you have a brand that you can't necessarily be the one being at the forefront, showcasing how the products actually look like?
It's a very personal choice. There are some people who are more extroverted, that they are very comfortable being at the forefront. I'm definitely not. I need a lot of preparation to be at the forefront, and I need a lot of preparation, right? The vision you have will demand from you even the things that are uncomfortable for you. We're now trying to do is build the community, the actual community around our brand. But communities are built out of shared values. So the clothes will not be enough anymore. It needs to be what the brand is about. What does it represent? What are our core values? How do they align with your values? And then that's ideally the questions we're asking ourselves.
What else do you see are the critical factors in building a successful fashion business on the continent, and especially on this side of the continent in Kenya as well?
Fashion in Africa is very practical. Even if you go to runway, I think in most African countries, customers can literally go like that and buy and wear. Whereas if you go to Europe, you can find a lot of shows are very conceptual. What's on the runway might not be really what's on the shop floor. So maybe what they're selling is different. They're selling maybe that idea of what the brand represents, maybe that's it. But I feel Africans are very practical. And I don't think this is a bad thing, because if you have a good runway show, you can literally sell out after the show. That's how quick the turnover can be. So you have to understand, this is your market. What are the sensibilities of the market and the people in the market? How you schedule your drops, having a discipline around releasing items, because you're a designer. Your work is to design and to release. But it can't always be when I think it's right, or it's not yet. You have to give yourself timelines. And also what you're doing is you're letting the market tell you
what's there.
This is what I need. And then you can say, okay, then that's not my customer. Let me try this customer. So I think there's a listening you have to do to the market. So it's always the things that are never the most fun to do that I think make a business tick.
So when I ask the question, I put creativity or the design on one side and then the customer side on one side, and you've touched on other things that are important. But I want to come back now to the customer. Our consumer is really ready for like African brands, because there's a lot of thrifting and people just want to buy what they can afford. What do you think is missing in that ecosystem?
I think they are 100% ready. I think, especially if I'm speaking about Nairobi, there's a big part of, and I think this is mostly starting from, and I think even the Gen Zs have it, but a lot of millennials are intentionally saying, I have to have African brands or Kenyan brands in my wardrobe. Now, what they demand, they have the intention there, but the brands still have to meet expectation. So you have to meet the quality expectation. Because what they'll do is they'll say, okay, this is not the Kenyan brand, let me look for another Kenyan brand. So they're intentionally looking. So it's up to you as a brand to say, do I meet the quality expectation? Your design will probably attract different clients, but then your finishing still has to be quality regardless. Your customer service has to be quality. Even your delivery guy has to be quality. Because if they have the option to buy from everywhere, but they're saying we want to buy from Kenyan brands, it's now for the brands to step up.
You can see clearly that this passion or this new evolving love for African fashion seems to excite you. Apart from that, is there anything else that excites you about the industry and the ecosystem?
I think there's always opportunity in your local market, on African markets, because they're still growing markets. And we still have, I think it's in a few years, but we'll have a larger number of younger customers available than in Europe, because they're growing older, they don't have as many. So their median age is going higher, ours is staying younger. So you'll have the earning population still quite young in Africa, ready to purchase brands. And I think it's up to either African countries to figure out that we should be trading within each other first. The fact that we are benchmarking less against markets that don't even look at us as customers, first of all.
Before they even start designing for you.
Yeah, they don't even look at you. You're benchmarking against a dream or an idea, which is all good. But brands saying, okay, we understand our own markets, and this is how we want to kind of operate.
Build for our market.
Yeah, this is how we want to build for our market. I think that's the most important thing that's happening with a lot of brands.
Put it this way, what other misconceptions do you think the global fashion industry has about African fashion?
I think a lot of the times they assume African fashion is all about the Ankara print, and so they have
The
maybe
tribal designs.
So they have maybe a narrower view of what that brand is, and looking at it from the other side of the coin, maybe this also happens a bit locally as well, maybe, and I think it's just because how a lot of African markets grew up is a very tailor-led kind of upbringing where you take your fabric, you go to a local tailor.
And then they make
It's mostly Ankara. So maybe that still exists here, where now being an African designer doesn't mean you're doing print, right? So I think from the other side, looking this way, maybe they have a narrower view of what those brands are, but it's being helped because there are a lot of now diaspora Africans buying into local brands, and that's kind of helping kind of maybe widen the view. Another misconception that is hard is unfortunately from this side, where I don't think we're judged on quality on the other end unless you are retailing, you're selling to a retailer.
A retailer, a wholesaler.
But they'll only judge you on quality because that's what they do anyway. If they have the same kind of, this is our requirements, they'll just give you those requirements. But I think from this end, if you have really good quality items, you usually get maybe this is made here.
Yeah.
And it's always locals. Sorry, and I'm sorry to say, but I've seen this surprise mostly from locals.
No, you'll be surprised, like Afro quality. People will come to our store, and this happened here in Nairobi, in Accra, in Kigali. And you're like, okay, this was made in Africa. They're like, wow. I said, okay, no, this was actually made in Rwanda. This was made in Ghana. They're like, wow.
Yeah.
So that one you are.
So there's a local expectation that our quality isn't high compared to
what
comes from outside. I don't let it bother me so much, again, because I think we've gotten to a point where for Itikadi as a brand, we are making it an expectation that this is our level of quality.
Point, yeah.
So the thing that I will always benchmark is I'll go maybe into a Woolworths or an LC Waikiki. I never buy. I just go to check how have they finished. Okay, how are they finishing this item? I'm looking for the stitching. I'm looking for anything that I have not seen before. I'm looking for anything that they've used that I know I may not find locally, that I can see whether I'm looking for those benchmarks, because for a customer, that's what
becomes the reference point.
Yeah. Then because they don't want to wear your item and be like, the style is good, but the finishing, I'd honestly rather have this was made here than the quality being bad,
being questioned
after the fact. But I think that misconception should go. I think customers should demand for better quality, and this helps raise the quality overall.
Fashion is sexy, it's glamorous, and everybody looks at it from what you see on the outside. But behind the scenes, it's very cash intensive and sometimes very, very, very tight. What's been for you in the last 10 years your hardest money lesson?
Is not to use money to solve every problem.
Okay.
So this is in reference to a time where we had the opportunity to apply for a bit of funding, not a grant, but a very low interest loan, right?
Okay.
And we set out what we want to do with the funding, and we're going to do this, that, and the other, and then this is going to have this result, and then we can pay this back. A lot of the times, what you're doing when actually want to take that a bit back. I think there are two problems with this kind of where the money lesson comes, where you have institutions or programs that want to lend a hand to the market and in good faith, because they believe this and this is needed for the market to grow. But if you're going to give funding to a young brand or a brand that's just starting, there are some lessons those designers have not learned. And most of the time, what you'll find is you will give the facility, and then things might not work out, and the hard lessons then will come. And that's exactly what happened to us. So we laid out the plan, and the plan was good. But the plan was more hopeful than rooted in actual, show me what you're doing now. Oh, if you're not selling this now, how you can't ask for this type of funding? What are some of there's not a lot of checks on the nitty-gritties. Again, because the work of the funder is to fund, right? Maybe that's their main thing.
But from your side, is it a lack of maybe understanding of the principles of business and what actually it takes to get from where you were to where you were hoping to get to with the funding?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of things. Okay. So I think you should always ask questions. Even if you're applying for a fund, you should go to someone who maybe you trust or someone who's been there all day and say, I want to apply for this. What do you think? And they can ask you the right questions, right? Or they can see your plan and say, this is more speculative than fact. So do you really want to put this as the plan? Are there other things that you need solving that the money can solve? That, all those questions. So maybe I didn't ask any of those questions. I didn't go to a trusted person. So ideally, we got the funding. We did part 1 of the funding. It didn't work. So what happened? I used part 2 of the funding to try and solve part 1. Instead of saying, ideally, I should have been like, guys, you've given me half the funding. This hasn't worked. Don't give me the other. Let me owe you less than owe you the full. But let's see, before you give me that, what didn't work here, and try to figure out how to solve, because clearly it hasn't worked. So my instinct was, I have another batch coming. If I do this, this, and this, it'll fix the first one. It ended up not working at all. So what that told me is 2 things. One, to never assume funding is the problem for a business or lack of funding, and to really investigate why something is not working before you try and solve it with money. Because it might be, you might have solved it with just communicating better, or being in the right spot, or communicating to your customers the right way, or being more aggressive sales-wise. You might have solved it a number of ways before you poured money into it.
How do you view, for instance, investment? Because I'm asking this because you talked about when you're looking for even external funding, and how has been the journey for you, like trying to find maybe equity partners or seed funding to help build the machine for the business if you intend to scale? How have you approached it?
In terms of investment or searching for investors or looking for equity partners, I'm very clear in my mind that there's a part we have to reach before that becomes a big thing for us. There's a cadence we have to have, or a rhythm we have to have within our sales numbers, where we are achieving this per this. So one thing that I've learned, especially with cash flow in a business, not only from my business, but where I worked as well, was cash flow issues are actually quite similar regardless of scale. So whether you're doing 20K, whether you're doing 200,000 a month, or you're doing 20 million a month, there's a point where your cash flow can only allow you to do what you're doing at that point. And then it's at that point that you say, what's my next step? And for me to get to the next step, then this is the injection that's needed, because the cash flow that's running around right now is only going to do what it's already doing. It won't do more. So I think learning where those points are, I don't think my brand is at that point where we can say come in. Because I feel like if someone comes in, either they're coming into a situation that's still trying to find a good rhythm and it's predictable. Because I also have to ask myself, if I was an investor, how much risk do I want? I want something where I can see a flow and I can say, okay, I see the flow and I see where you guys are going, but I know I'm safe, at least because there's a rhythm to the business. We're trying to build that rhythm for Itikadi, and we're trying to do it in different ways. We're trying to understand our customer, build our community so that we really are doing what we're meant to do as a brand. And once we have that rhythm, and it will reach the point where our cash flow can only do what the cash flow can do, then we'll be in a position, in even a stronger position to, if someone wants to come in to say, this is what we are doing. You always want to be in the best position to say, this is what we're doing. This is what we kind of need. And to be attractive enough for someone to go like, okay, I see the trajectory and I see where the vision is. I think when you're a young brand, you should really be careful when you take in, or what kind of facility you take in. So maybe it's, you have the ability to take a very low interest loan from maybe an organization that's funding for smaller businesses. Those are good ways, as long as, again, they'll have their own criteria and they'll maybe tier you and say, if you make this much, this is how much you can apply. It's now up to you to say, this is how much, if I'm getting this much, this is what we're going to do, and this is where we're going to get. I think those opportunities are at the start of a brand are better, because then you learn how to manage your cash flow. You learn more things than if someone comes in
and gives you.
And if you don't have a clear vision, they will dictate the vision, and they will switch your vision around if you're not in a strong position.
You know what you said, there's always been that thinking around the difficulty of creative businesses raising money and getting external funding, whether it's private equity or VC and the like. But then what you've mentioned actually, for me, captures it in the sense that once the person building the business understands the fundamentals that are needed to be able to speak the language of investors, it's actually a much easier conversation, because then the questions are already answered by having done the hard work from the very beginning. The part where maybe most creative businesses have not been lucky is the fact that we don't have a lot of angel funds or the more riskier capital to help you try, so that at a stage where you are still trying to find your rhythm, you'll still be able to tap into some kind of funding or investment sources who have the appetite for that kind of topsy-turvy situation. And that is where it becomes a bit of a problem, because then now you all get stuck. Nobody is moving, nobody is growing, because there's that funding that is not readily available.
And I think it's just because of the industry. Like, fashion is not tech. Because tech, an innovation can be new and it's exciting, and an investor will be like, if this scales to this, if I invest now, I'll drop off at this level and I'll have made this much. And then, so there's a lot of speculation and a lot of innovation. Fashion in itself is a basic need. So it's stable. It's now about, as a business, what are you doing? What are you doing? So for an investor, they really have to see on the ground proof that you understand your market, you're making your money, you have your fundamentals in order, you have a proper, even if it's a tiny structure, you have a proper structure, you have an understanding of how to you're not guessing. Of course, there are things you're learning, but you're not guessing
everything.
You're not guessing through your process. And you've built a rhythm where if they ask you, when are your low times? I always like to sit on the part and switch shoes and say, would I make the same decisions the other way if I was holding this money? If it was my money in my pocket and I'm going to give you, would I not ask for the same things or the same assurances or the same questions? I think the opportunity for brands in this situation where it's hard to get funding is you are now forced to learn the fundamentals. And once you learn the fundamentals, you'll really realize I didn't need what I thought I needed, maybe was not what I needed at the time, or I didn't need as much. Like right now, I'm very clear. If an investor comes in and says, "Oh, James, I have 10 million," I'd be like, "We don't need that much, right?"
You know, that was actually my next question.
Really?
I was going to ask you, if somebody gave you $1 million right now, where would you put it?
If they've given me $1 million, which if I translate correctly, that's 129 million Kenya shillings. I promise you 128 million will be in the bank. I'll need one of those millions only for now to get to the next stage of where we're getting. I think it's important. It's always, I'm not saying if there's a good opportunity to not take it, especially if the person who's coming in with that opportunity is genuine. And they're not going to
strings attached.
They're not going to switch the vision around. All of a sudden, you are designing locally, and then all of a sudden you're buying from China. I think if there's an opportunity, take it. But let's even say it was just 10 million Kenya shillings, not even 10 million, not even in dollars. It's very easy to tell the person, and you want to invest, that's all well and good. But let's take your 10 and break it. Let's milestone this thing. We are now here. We want to get here. How much do we need to get here? And when we get there, now let's talk about another batch. I think what people don't realize is there's freedom to create a plan. And there's freedom to tell someone who's coming in, what I need now is not your whole. But if your whole is for me, I'll take it. But let's break it down and give it proper work. Let's say we want to get from 200K a month in sales to 1 million a month in sales. What does that mean for production, for markets, for this and that? And cash-wise, what does that look like? And then let's use that to get to that point. And once we reach that milestone, let's talk about the second milestone and the third milestone and the fourth milestone. Again, this is something I wish I did even when I was looking for funding, but it's something that I actively think about now is where's the next step for Itikadi and what's the amount needed for that. You'd be very surprised how little you need. And if you're to focus on, if someone tells you, okay, focus on one thing in your business that you want to change and I'll give you the money for that, it'll always be a lower amount than what you thought. It's only because when you're asking for funding, you're thinking about everything. You're not really saying, if I was to do something right now at this moment, what's the best thing for the brand? What moves the brand forward at this moment? And then what does that look like as a cash inflow or whatever?
Today, if we look at the fashion brands in Africa and Kenya, do you think that their ability to scale is more skewed towards access to funding or more of getting the fundamentals right internally in terms of structures and approach to market?
I think access to funding, scale-wise, I think funding is always important. But I think the when to scale is where a lot of fashion brands or growing brands maybe don't. So I don't think the first 5 years are when you make huge jumps. I think those first years are when you really create your foundation. You're digging deeper and saying, this is the structure. This is how we work. This is our rhythm. This is how our teams are set up. This is the culture of the brand. You're setting the kind of benchmarks not the benchmarks, so you're setting the foundation for your brand. Once that foundation is strong, I think you'll get to a specific place.
That makes it easier.
That makes it easier. Then you can say, okay, I've reached the end of what our financial ability can do without extra injection. So now you can go pitch for exactly what the next level is, but knowing that everything else is set. Because scaling is always hard without a cash injection. But I think a lot of the mistake is made on the when to.
get that cash injection.
When to get that cash in, and then a lot of it at times without having the structure properly like set, the foundation set.
Do you see yourself as having become more, the word is not cautious, but having become more tactical about how you approach the fashion business because of the experiences you had and having gone to work for other people?
It's important to be tactical. I don't think there's a successful fashion brand that don't either look at their numbers or understand how their customers kind of think or work, or when they buy, or how they buy, where they buy from, how much they spend per. I think you'll always have to have data running in your mind to make decisions at specific points. And I'll give an example. For us doing denim, maybe what we needed to do was not have a denim collection at that point, but introduce a denim item that eases the client in. Maybe denim didn't need to be a whole collection, because I would have still bought the fabric. But maybe I needed pants and a jacket, because it was the colder period. Maybe that would have worked instead of a whole cycle. But we made that decision coming out of a really good period. And really good periods are usually sometimes the worst for.
Okay, the bad times create strong men, and good times create weak men.
Yeah.
So you become too excited.
Yeah. So you're excited, so everything looks like a good idea when it's really good. But when things are dipping is when you'll realize not every decision is the best decision for that time. So I think I find myself failing sometimes in making the right decision at the right time, but I also find myself not rushing into some decisions because there's an understanding of, is it the right time? Is it the right piece? Does it make sense? Does this decision move us forward? Again, what are we trying to do this year? What are we trying to do in 3 years? What are we trying to do in 10 years? At some point, me just designing is not enough. Mm-hmm. I have to think, and I have to have people alongside me who even think better than me about some things, so that they can be like, James, here you're just plain wrong, or this just won't work. I'm telling you right now for free. And you have to recognize that I actually don't want to be the one who knows everything. And I would be very comfortable if I have a team that someone who understands marketing 1,000 times better than me, someone who understands finance 1,000 times better than me, or marketing strategy 1,000 times better than me. Because what I know is that they will not design 1,000 times better than me. I have that one. I'm done. I'm done. So I just need everyone to have in the team to be thinking in that way, is what the vision that we want to get to, how do we make sure we get there with as few mistakes as possible, and with a very high success rate.
What responsibility do you feel towards like artisans and suppliers of buttons and other input things that ends up bringing out the piece? And in most of our conversations, they tend to get very little or even no recognition.
A lot of the times these artisans work independently. They haven't organized themselves in a way where it's basically exchange of skill for cash. Sure. And a lot of the artisans, from what I know, their work, or what is important for them, is not to shout out on Instagram or whatever. It's, here's the big order. I'm a skilled artisan. I'm getting this order and I make my money. And I use my skill to make money. I think there's a lot of work in trying to get some of these key inputs or key skills to organize in some way that give them a good chance of delivering value to the brands in a way that is sustainable for the brands. On time, sometimes it's about on time. You've made a commitment for this, you've been paid for this, and then all of a sudden you had an emergency. It could be genuine or it could be other things. You've gone with your skill. You've literally gone with your skill. There's no someone to say, okay, this order is being worked in by this group. If someone falls off, then this other person can take over. So there's no real organization around some of these key inputs that I think need to be encouraged, not only for the good of the artisans themselves, but also for the good of the industry. The more organized some of these things are, the easier it is for brands to say, let me, if I want to do a jewelry brand, I know I can go to X organization. They have artisans in their group, and those artisans work together, and they give the X timelines. And so the more predictable my supplier is, even if it's an artisan or an artisan group, the easier it is for me to say, how can I plan out a jewelry rollout for Itikadi if you want to move into that sector? How do I work with these guys? So I think we have those kind of artisans, and if your brand works with them, the more I think highlight them for sure. And I think we have just other normal suppliers where you have your fabric suppliers, you have your accessory suppliers like zippers and stuff like that. The only thing I'd say is the only difficulty business-wise is you want to create as much space for cash flow as possible, but a lot of our inputs are cash at the point. So you end up spending more even before you sell. And so I think getting a good positive cash flow all the time becomes a bit harder, you know. So the balancing act for you as a brand is trying to figure out either how to create good relationships with these groups or with these guys who give you the things that you need for your item to come out.
When you imagine or you think about Itikadi in 10 years' time, what do you see, especially now that you are focused, single-minded on it?
In 10 years, Itikadi we should have 3 stores that we run that are our stores. One in Kenya, we're thinking one in Kenya, one in West Africa, one in South Africa. So we're trying to cover as much African ground as possible. And then we have to be in other African markets, but we can be in partner stores, like Afro Quality.
If you didn't say that, we're not gonna show this interview.
So we want to be in partner stores such as Afro Quality, and the more you guys grow into other markets, the easier it is for us to move into those markets. We have a very high revenue target for 10 years. I think we want to be closer to the billion Kenya shilling mark in 10 years. We've said it out loud. Now we have to
do the work.
Now we have to do the work
to feel it.
I'm positive because there are brands who are close to that are African brands or Kenyan brands. So it can happen. I think it's just about you have to be disciplined, and you have to be focused, and you have to be aggressive in communicating the values of your brand, and be in front of the right people. And we have to be employing a good number of people. So I don't think I want a super huge team. I don't think we'll reach 1,000 or anything like that. But anything around 200 people, directly or indirectly, means that we are impacting enough families. Yeah.
You talked about expansion. When you think about expansion, which category of expansion excites you? Is it apparel, accessories? And in the future, do you see this in 10 years' time?
For Itikadi, there'll be other categories. We want to be a lifestyle brand. We want to fit into the lifestyle that we envision Itikadi is. So whether it's clothes, jewelry, whether it's cosmetics, hopefully. Not all these have to be directly done by Itikadi. It can either be partnerships, or it can be collaborations, homeware for sure. Being a designer, so when I say, even when I say I'm a designer, it's not framed into fashion only. I have a big love for architecture, and I'm 100% for sure at some point I'll partner with someone and there'll be an architectural firm. Whether it works or not, I don't know, but I know that it'll be there, just because it's an interest that has always been there. But I think out of all these categories, jewelry, the jewelry part excites me the most.
Okay.
For two reasons. One, it's a smaller thing to design, but then very intentional. And usually accessories tie up whole looks. Like the right accessories
Just make the look
finish
pop.
the look. So I always feel like we have the first part on the clothes, but then we don't have the finishers. We don't have the access. We don't have the jewelry. We don't have the shoes. So we're always serving our customers only with one item, but we're not completing the whole look. And another thing is, now you get the opportunity to work with actual, like, proper artisans, especially if you're using precious metals and, if you're using, brass and whatever. You now really get to work with people who really, their skill is to really work with their hands. I think it's a very Afrocentric skill, this
Artisanal
artisanal, yeah. Not to say in other countries not there, but I feel like it's a big part. Like Kenya itself is very ornamental, beadwork and stuff like that. So it's a lot of those skills are very cultural skills that are passed on. I feel some of this is disappearing. If you have more brands working on where these skills are needed, these skills get to
standardized
stay.
and then
Yeah,
get to grow.
they get to stay. So I think jewelry excites me the most because we'll be able to do those two things.
You have all the commercial side locked down in terms of the way you think, a process mindset and all that. But when you come back to that point where somebody picks up a piece and wears a piece that you've designed, in your thoughts, what experience do you want them to have? What do you want them to feel when they pick something that you've designed and wear that?
So if I'm making a slip dress that's a very like a dinner dress, I want it to feel extremely beautiful. What I want you to do is to feel like when you walk into a room, you will not shout, but people will turn their heads. Usually when I'm designing such pieces, that's what I'm looking for. Even when I'm doing the print, I'm looking for something that doesn't scream for attention, but has a very soft or quiet power that it just speaks for itself. Like you walk into a room and people will look and will be like, okay, she's walked in. But you're not doing the work of like, look, I'm here. I feel there's a lot of pieces that do a lot of that work. And maybe they're needed for that time. And then those details speak more than a louder color or this or that. If you're picking up a piece that's more casual, that's more denim, I still want you to feel like you have a piece that not everyone has. Therefore, you're unique into yourself. So a lot of our prints do this. So when we're creating prints, when I'm creating a print, when we go to print it, especially for the women's wear pieces, we do it large scale. So what that allows us to do is when we are cutting these pieces, you'll never have the same version
of the
same cut. So the dress will have the same color, the same print style, but if the two customers stand together, they will never look the same. You have your own version of that dress. And we've kept that consistent because it has to reflect the customer. Our customers are attracted to the same thing, but these are individuals. They're individuals with their own unique ways of being, and the dress has to kind of reflect that and be like, this is only for me from this collection.
If you are to collaborate today, we see a lot of movements in the African fashion lifestyle space, a lot of great things happening in South Africa, Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal. Like I've seen some really amazing products from there since we started this Afro Quality project. Nigeria, Ghana, across board, Uganda, it's amazing the kind of things going on there. For you as a creative, if you are to collaborate with any African brand or designer today, who will it be?
So the first one is Patheo. I don't know if I'm saying the name correctly.
Yeah, I think I've seen it.
So he's a print designer. I think majorly he's a print designer. And I'd collaborate because of the prints, because they do their own version of the Kitenge prints and stuff like that. Was it Louis V that did a collab with him? And I was just like, come on. I was proud, but also I was annoyed because I was like, it would feel. I think just because of how iconic his prints are, and he's known for that. I would love to collaborate on that. Where just like let's do that. Just give me like print. I'll use it. There's a Nigerian designer I met as well, who I would, but that one I'm actually seeking a collaboration. He's called Henry Uduku.
Okay.
And I think the thing I liked about him is we almost have the same sensibilities in a way where we don't shout. The designs don't shout. So he's very intentional with his colors, with his print style, and he loves using local. But Nigeria has a lot of available local fabric. So he definitely would be one. For jewelry, there's a Kenyan jewelry brand that I think is my favorite one. That I think at some point, hopefully at some point, we do something together, called We Are NBO. Okay. So We Are Nairobi or We Are NBO. The designer has a way of, he does floral pieces and stuff like that, but with brass. And by the time you can make metal look soft or look like florals, like you really have an understanding of what you're doing. And his artisans really have an understanding of what he's trying to do and know how to translate it. And also he's very intentional with his picks or how he displays the items.
My final question, if today this conversation that we've had for the last hour, almost an hour and a half, were heard by a young Kenyan, South African, Zambian, Ugandan creator who is dreaming of trying to build something on their own, a fashion house, I don't know, design house, whatever, what truth would you want them to take away that you believe can be foundational and make the difference between how well they do or succeed?
I'd say the one truth I'd want them to know is money is not always the problem. I could be wrong, and I don't know about other countries, but I think there's a big belief among creatives or among fashion designers that lack of funding is a problem. And the only reason I'm highlighting that is because it stops a lot of momentum. Whereas you can start very small with just one item in 3 sizes and show it to your friends and then move to the next piece. And then there's a lot of power in starting small and learning. And I think when money or funding, and I'm very cognizant of this because even the access to do 3 pieces might not be the same for everyone, because not everyone is in the same financial position at any one time. Maybe me saying start with 3 pieces, maybe there's someone who honestly they can't, or maybe it's hard for them, or maybe it's a bigger task for them to do that. And I'm very aware that I'm speaking this from where I had opportunities, and I literally grew up with a whole team, my mom's team, doing stuff. And I had access, and I had fabric access, and I didn't need to buy anything to test. So I'm very fortunate. But I think even with that, a lot of my mindset was the same mindset I keep hearing with people saying, for me to do a brand, I don't have the funding, I don't have this, I don't have that. Where the mindset should be, let me make this one item and let me show it to people and let me test. Let me see what they say. You'd be surprised this is the same thing guys are taught in business school, where you're told, test. No one knows what your product is. Even before you make 20, make 1. It's a fundamental thing to say, these are my ideas. do I understand it? Do the people who I want to show it to understand it? If you show your family members and they're not the right customers, maybe go to a pop-up and try testing, partner with, find a way to get into a pop-up. There's someone who did something very interesting, where they got into a pop-up by partnering with another brand that was in the pop-up, and they got like a few pieces on the rack. Yeah, sometimes you'll need to figure out ways to do it. You'll find the American business mindset is always to start and to test. Let's start, let's see, they always be that. Not all of them work and some of them fail, but they have such a mindset of start, go test, do this, do that, or want to start this. Okay, let's put some things together in the garage and start. They're always big on just let's start. And I think that mindset has always driven them to new things. And there'll be guys who fall off, but then there'll be guys who then take off. Whereas I think here we're always a bit more cautious, where you have, this has to be right, or that has to be right. It could be at the right time and you still had the wrong item. You'd rather just say like, okay, I'm a young creative, whether it's design, film, but I'm a young creative. In fact, the filmmakers have zero excuses because of YouTube. Yes, you have so much access to be on screen in any way you want, and all you need is your phone. And so I usually go like, filmmakers have zero excuses. They just have to now put in the work. But let's say for fashion and for other stuff, just find a way to start with that one top, one pants, one skirt. You wear it. If you're a lady, wear it. Go show guys, say, what do you think? When I was in uni, I used to do polo t-shirts, and then I'd do like an artwork in the polo t-shirt where I'd put a fabric on the inside and then do a cutout of calligraphy on the outside. And I used to make them for me and then for myself. And then there's a school club that saw, and were like, oh, can you make these for us with kind of our logo, and then something said at the back for an event that's coming up. Immediately I said yes, even though I knew the work was going to be so hard, but I knew how to make the polo t-shirts, and all I needed was time, as long as they didn't tell me we need them in 2 days. And when I just started doing, it changed when I got into business. And when you get into business and things don't work out, it feels like a blow, and then you're like, whoa, okay, this isn't what this is not what I expected, and then maybe it slows you down a bit. But I think we still have a lot of that mindset where you can easily just start. So I would say whatever your idea is, in some form or way, there's a way for you to start. There's a way for you to start, even if you're in a position where you don't have much money, or you don't have access to a lot of money. I'm sure there's a way for you to get fabric from somewhere, make one piece, take it to the right place. There's a way for you to actively start. And I'll give another example. So our rider, there are times when he has downtime and he's always in the workshop asking questions. And recently he started learning how to tailor. And right now he's making his own pants. And this is the guy who does deliveries. And he was like, okay, I have time. And, there are machines here. And I deliver these things everywhere. And he's always like, I can't ride this bike forever. Let me learn a new skill. And all he did was just ask, and he could have finished deliveries and gone
to sleep.
Yeah, he could have gone home, or he would have gone to the stage and tried to get other rides. He would have done a number of things, but he was just like, well, I'm not going to be on the bike forever, and I have time to learn a new skill. Let me learn a new skill. And I think his wife opened a shop, like a clothes shop. So now he's thinking of making some stuff and taking it to the clothes shop. He just started. He didn't ask any questions. He didn't say, oh, So if I have spare fabric, I told him I'm never going to use that fabric. You take it, because I have that trust in the bank with him. He's my delivery guy. So I have fabric that I'm never going to touch. That's sitting there for like 2 years. I was like, okay, that roll is yours. Don't come disturb me for another roll. Yeah. So that roll is yours. So you do your testing on that. Once you finish learning, then learn with that roll. And then now we can discuss doing other things if we need to do other things. But the head tailor is there. Learn as much as you can from him. Do as much as you can from him. So what he didn't have is the questions.
Or even when I start, maybe I'll suck, or people will start laughing at me.
Yeah, he didn't have any of those questions. And I think what we need to lose is that. You're questioning things you haven't even started. There's no questions to ask. If you haven't started your brand, or your idea is still in your mind, you have zero questions to ask, apart from where can I get the tools I need to make the first item, and where can I showcase, or where can I show, or who can I show it to, who can I sell it to. Then when you get a reply from the client, now you can have other questions. A lot of the times that guy... We're not all going to, we just have to start.
Thank you very much for spending time with us on this episode of Rooted in Quality podcast. It's been an amazing conversation, and I'm very confident that our listeners and followers have picked as much as I personally have. And if there's anything that you missed out of this whole conversation, just remember the last point. Just start. Or maybe we'll say Nike, just do it.
Just do it.
Thank you very much. It's been amazing.
Thank you so much.